We are Jim and Amy Good. We are Colorado investors. We've invested in Brett's favorite state of Alabama, Florida, Illinois, Colorado, North Dakota, and our goal is to find cash flowing, landlord-friendly states. And we've noticed that the Memphis market is an emerging market, and I would say this team works with great contractors that we got to see 3 or 4 different builds today from the different contractors. So listen in.
We are sponsored by Title Assurance and Escrow, a title company here in Cordova that does all of our closings, title work, escrows, and we only use Title Assurance and Escrow. That relationship is very important because we can get things done for our investors quickly and easily. So to speak with Title Assurance and Escrow, call 901-737-3332. Ask for Chris or April.
So today we are going to be sitting with Amy and Jim Good. They are some newer investors of mine, newer investor in Memphis. This is the only property I'll have in Memphis that we saw today.
So far.
Right?
Yep.
I like to discuss different theories, different formulas with different investors because everybody has their own idea of how to do this. And I've heard a million different ways, but there's always the base common thread of return on investment, market. There's some certain consistencies, but everybody's got a different goal as to what they want to hit. So I want to find out. I'm going to ask your wife first.
Smart man.
and then we'll unplug her battery, and then you and I will talk.
That's awesome.
Okay. Earlier, we were talking about AI, and we're discussing AI robots. And Jim made the astonishing comment. I couldn't believe you said this. I was so offended. I felt bad for Amy. So, well, if a robot, you can just take her battery out. You don't have to listen to her anymore. Thought that was funny. All right, Amy, so you give me your theory on investing. Why do you invest, and what do you expect out of your investment properties? What are you doing it for?
Yeah, we love the lifestyle that investing provides, and we truly do enjoy investing in real estate and houses. And so we're definitely investing for cash flow and for appreciation. And right now, our big goal is to move to markets that are landlord-friendly.
Landlord-friendly. Tennessee's landlord-friendly. Just saying. Very landlord-friendly. Well, let me ask you this. What is your... Are you a 1%er? Or you like the 1% rule? Is that what you look for?
I don't look for that because we haven't found that in a decade.
Right.
So
what markets are you in now?
We're in Colorado, Alabama, Florida, Illinois, North Dakota, and now Tennessee.
A lot of blue areas. Maybe that's why. So 1% rule for those of you who are listening, it's pretty simple. You spend $100,000 for a house, it's got to rent for $1,000 a month or more. Memphis is a 1% city. If you get in the B's and the A neighborhoods, no, you're not going to get the 1%. But we have a lot of C and C plus areas I drove y'all through today. Those 1% is pretty common. And most investors that come here, that's what they start with. If it's below 1%, they don't even waste their time. They move on to the next one. So you're not a 1%er, but you got your first property in Memphis. I want to know your honest opinion. We drove through the markets. Initially, when I drive investors through the markets, sometimes I get a little cringy and kind of like, wow, what was your thought? Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different than what we're used to investing in, but I can see the value in it. We had some great conversations on the road today, and understanding that these neighborhoods are turning, and investors and contractors are going in and trying to make them neighborhoods where people want to live. And I'm really interested in that.
Well, we have a bunch of markets actually, that are recycling right now. They're going through this recycle period where houses are being rehabbed and renovated, and prices are going up, rents are going up, which is always positive. Unfortunately, a lot of investors sit back and they coattail, right? They sit back and say, well, I'm going to wait till everybody else does it. Then I'm going to do it. I mean, if you did that in a stock market, you'd never make any money. You'd be buying Amazon stock when it peaks, right? Mm-hmm. And not when you ride the wave up. It's like buying Bitcoin at $100,000 a coin now when you could have bought it, $10 a coin 10 years ago. Our team focuses on putting people in recycling and emerging markets. That's what we're good at. We find them, we identify them. And look, there's still a lot of agents in town that think I'm crazy for putting my investors, but who don't think, the people that don't think I'm crazy are the hundreds of investors I put into Raleigh 6 years ago that have all doubled their money on the values of the properties they bought. So is it perfect plan? No. Is there risk? Sure. There's risk in any investment.
Absolutely.
If you can't accept risk, you're not an investor. You're a speculator.
And there's nothing perfect in real estate.
No, not at all. In your other markets, give me a an example of one of your rentals in Chicago, Illinois?
Those are all commercial at this point. We've sold off all
where's
the
your residential?
families. So residential is Colorado, Alabama, Florida.
Every time you say Alabama, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm an
I see
LSU
that.
fan.
I do too.
I'm an LSU fan. Okay, so let's take is it a single family in Alabama?
Yep.
Okay. What is it? Is it 3-1, 2-1, 4-2?
4-2 new builds.
New build.
Yep.
Oh, may I ask what you had to buy it for?
$269.
$269. Damn it. We're giving our crap away. $269. Okay. And what is the rent for?
$17.95.
$17.95. So you're not even close to the 1%.
Nowhere near.
So what attracted you to that investment? What were you looking for?
New builds are definitely something of interest for us because we have bought older properties and had lots of money sunk into the repairs and maintenance on properties. Okay. And so the new builds have become extremely attractive to us and the ease of them. And so that's definitely what interested us in that market, consistent market between Birmingham and Montgomery, and good as far as the business that's around the area and the tenant
jobs
pool and all of it was definitely something.
How would you classify the neighborhood that you are? Now, I showed you my version of a CC plus area. How would you classify the neighborhood of that house in Alabama?
I'd say
Sorry, I almost puked again.
I'd say BB minus.
BB minus, okay.
Yeah.
You don't mean any offense to people in Alabama, obviously.
Yes, I do. No, not in Alabama, just Roll Tide fans. That's the only ones I mean offense to. So a step above where we are today versus what I showed you today.
Yes.
But, I mean, you're getting $1,700 a month on a $265,000 investment. So you would hope that the lack of repairs and maintenance over the next year, because obviously you got a 1-year bill of warranty, right?
Yep.
So over the next year, if you don't have those initial maintenance costs, so hopefully you can change that ROI and pull it up some. But do you expect a large appreciation or a large rent growth, or you just expect it to kind of...
It's going to be steady Eddie, consistent market.
Steady Eddie. Okay, got it. So we're going to unplug her battery. Jim, I want to hear your perspective now. Aside from the fact that your wife's sitting right next to you listening to what you're saying.
Absolutely. Well, we've been partners for a long time, so she knows what she's getting. So I would say a comment on the 1%. We've been doing this for a bit. And when we started, our goal was to make $300. Our goal was $300 per month
net.
And that was net. And that was our goal back in the day. We've been doing this since 2004, I want to say. So we're slow and steady investors. So when I hear the 1%, that is something that we never really paid much attention to as investors. But we did get into the Colorado market at the right time. You know, we were talking about, timing the market today. There is no timing the market. I've always told people that we've wanted to get into real estate. You buy real estate and wait. You don't wait and buy real estate.
That's
so
right.
that's the metric we used. So that 1% thing wasn't really in our vocabulary then.
Well, but you were probably buying these properties that what you knew were well below market value. But you also knew one thing: what does the real estate market do every year?
Appreciate.
With the exception of a drop for here and there, it's always steadily going up. So I know guys that made millions of dollars in 2008, scooping up properties left and right. They were smart about it.
We did very well after the GFC. So, but as far as today, I really enjoyed the market. It's nice seeing investment. So it's nice seeing what the city is doing to the area. It's nice to see what the businesses are doing to the area. I appreciated it. It's nice to see that one neighborhood you said where, the whole community was coming together and investing and bringing in others. It's nice to see those kinds of things here. So I do like the market. We really like markets, like Amy was mentioning, that are not Colorado markets. So the whole point is we are trying to move our assets into landlord-friendly states. And I know we had discussed the demographic of, politics in this area, but so far I like what I see.
Well, I can tell you that because Memphis market itself MHA is widely used. We talk about it all the time on air. Widely used because there are so many people, and a lot of people associate Section 8 or MHA with, low income, they're going to tear your house up, they're, a bunch of crackheads, and that's not the case in Memphis. Now, I don't know about the rest of the country, but in Memphis, you literally have a lot of single moms that work jobs and have 2 kids who just don't make enough money to cover their rent, which may only be $1,500 or $1,600 a month. A lot of families that are the same way. Dad works at FedEx and mom works somewhere, and they just don't make enough money to make ends meet. So MHA is a widely used program here. Many investors have latched on to that, realizing that, hey, during COVID, MHA was the only investors that got paid during the rent moratorium were Section 8 landlords, because the government kept paying, which I didn't think they would. I thought they'd find an excuse not to, but they did. So because of that, Memphis and the makeup of Memphis and the demographics of Memphis and how many people work in distribution and drive forklifts and trucks, we have a huge rental market. But what you saw today is the sweet spot in the investment. So yes, you can go and buy a house for $80,000 in 38106. You're probably going to evict 3 times in a year, and they're going to steal everything in the house. Or you can go into markets like we went to today, where you see one new house goes on a street, and then all of a sudden there's 5 other brand new renovated properties. When 5 years ago, that whole street was boarded up and abandoned. There was nobody living on it. And it took builders like Terry and some of these other guys to go have the cojones to go in there and actually build a house for the first time. And since then, we've watched these markets just continue to grow. I think I told you the first house we sold for Terry was $135,000. Now they're selling for $165,000 with a $5,000 builder warranty, and they're appraising for $170,000. So we've gone in 3 short years, $40,000 in increased value. So with that said, y'all are talking about moving some of your money. You said you're going to sell your assets in Colorado. So what do you have in Colorado?
We currently have, let's say, between 20 and 30.
Yep.
Single families. We have 2 duplexes in the city. We try to stay out of the metro area just because of the legislative burden that has historically done for us. But so we have between 20 and 30, and I would say 15 are cash owned, and the rest we have leverage on. So our goal is to move the ones that are cash owned and take, let's just say, a $600,000 home, and then put $100 down on.
You have a rental property worth $600,000?
We have 20.
Jesus.
Worth between.
No wonder you're getting out of that market. You can't be making money. Well, if it's cash owned.
No, we bought them when they were $200,000.
Right. The market's tripled.
Okay. Well, then there you go.
Asset values have tripled in that
That's
time
crazy.
frame. But that was 2013. So
that's still only 11 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a return in 11 years.
Yeah. Again, it's not, you can't really price or time that market.
Right.
So it was just
we were lucky.
an opportunity.
We bought at the right time.
We bought at the right time. It's like I told you today,
Just
we're
basically
blessed.
took advantage of every poor sucker out there bailing on the real estate.
Right, we did.
I would have too. Listen, like I said, I know guys that are millionaires. We know one at a mutual, I won't mention his name, but you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
He bought up a bunch of property. I think he borrowed some money from his dad, bought up a bunch of property, and I actually sold them 4 years ago, and I think we liquidated out about $3 million.
Right.
And he probably only had $500,000-600,000 invested. So it is doable if you can catch the market right. But that, you can also become a billionaire tomorrow in the stock market if you can catch that market right.
Right.
But very few people are able to, and
you can lose just as much in the same
you can
time
lose
frame.
twice as much.
Yes.
So I'm not convinced that trying to time the market is the way to be a good savvy real estate investor. I think. Let me ask you this. I'll ask you, long game?
Yes, we are. I would say a conservative investor. Okay. We've been doing this since 2004, so it's been real slow and steady. And we did the appreciation game to where we would keep. Once we reached, 40-50% equity in it, we would refi, take it, and we usually keep 30.
Money.
Yep, tax-free money. We take it and, back to like 30% equity. So then we would redeploy that, and we did that repeatedly over and over. And, we were in a time with low interest rates as well. So we really lucked out. Again, it's not like we were geniuses. We just happened to be, in an environment that we could make these kinds of monies on these kinds of properties. But we are a long. And one thing I have noticed is it takes us about 7 years, really, once we've purchased the property to be in a position where we do see that. I said $300. So it's taken us 7 years to where we really feel the properties are performing.
Right.
And the money
like super cash flow.
Super cash flow is about 7 years. So people paying off your note, the taxes, all the 4 or 5 things that you get into real estate for, we've seen it's a 7-year lag.
Okay.
Well, you get in it so you can tell your friends that you own property, right?
Yes, that's the only reason.
That's the only reason.
Yes.
Now,
Vanity purchase.
Yeah.
One question I did want to bring up with you, because you did mention how long you've been in the game, and you did mention interest rates. How much has that been a factor over the years, considering that cash flow is most important?
It's been extremely, because when we got started, we had high interest rates, and we did survive the GFC, and that was difficult. We were out of pocket $1,000 a month. Just
we were
hold
paying
on
some people's mortgages.
We were
They
basically
weren't
paying
meeting-
for people to live in our property. So we went from that again to most of our leveraged assets are in the less than 3. So the ones that are leveraged are 3%. So it's one of those, we're at that place where do we sell it with the ones with leverage just to get something, or are we holding on to these cash cows that are providing us great monthly generated revenues? So I would say the interest rates are very big. Why we have not bought here lately is,
It's hard to find cash
it's
flow.
hard to find cash flow. That's why we're moving out of Colorado. Well, one of the reasons why we're moving out of Colorado is, there's lots of states that have opportunity, and the blessing we received with the Colorado timing, we're hoping to find, for instance, a Memphis could be something like that. Different avenues. We are playing in Alabama. Sorry. We dabbled in Florida.
Coming up, I'm telling you.
Dabbling
Lunch
in
is
Florida.
coming up.
Yeah. So right now we're just trying to find the right states that, like investors.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Tennessee loves investors, and Memphis does. I mean, that's why we have so many of them. I mean, we literally have investors from every single country in the world. I've had a slew of investors coming out. I told you a story about my Japanese investors that came in. It took me a while to understand why so many investors are drawn to Memphis. But once you understand the makeup of Memphis and you understand the neighborhoods, right? Because if you were just driving to Memphis tomorrow and go into the neighborhood that we went today, just for whatever reason, you'd probably stop, turn around, and leave.
Oh, I
Right?
remember when you first sent us properties, and I'm like doing Google Maps and going, Brett, these houses around it are all boarded up,
Right.
and it looks run down. And
Now, the two houses next to the one that you bought were boarded up. They're both remodeled and someone's living in them. And there's one across the street that's about to be remodeled. So my take is that's a great opportunity, because every time a house goes up and gets remodeled and gets sold, values will keep going up. When the values go up, rents catch up, and it continues to grow. It's been doing that for the last 10 years here. It's been very consistent. We did have a dip last year, a slight dip when everybody else was freaking out and their markets were flat. Memphis, I think we still grew by what was it, like 1-2% last year? We still had a growth.
You're asking me. I don't pay attention.
He's from Britain. He doesn't pay attention to anything. So there was still a slight bit of growth, because when the market's down, what do investors do? Well, if the stock market's down, you're not selling. You should be buying, right? Now, there are some dumb investors out there that drops 10% and they unload everything, which I never get that. Double down, buy some more of it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go back up.
Long-term investors.
Right.
I mean,
if you know it's going to go back up, like the stock market is never just going to crash and never come back.
you only lose your money
When
when
you
its
sell.
prices are going down when
That's
you sell.
right.
Yeah.
So
Same thing in real estate. If we have a dip, the good thing for Memphis is we get a lot of investors flowing into town. I still, in a bad economy last year, had a very good season. It wasn't where I normally would be, but it was still outstanding because my investors were smart. They knew. They started calling me saying, what's going on with the market? They're texting me, is the market down? Are we seeing any drops? And once I tell them, yeah, we've got a little bit of a settling of pricing and we've come down 5 or 8%, they start hunting, start looking. And then I got another set of investors, as soon as things started taking off, now they're wanting to jump in and start buying again. For me personally, I would have every one of my investors buy between Halloween and New Year's Day.
that's our favorite time to buy.
Great.
That's
Then
when
we're gonna
we-
get along
that's when
just
we
fine.
signed our
That's
contracts
right.
with you.
We're going to get along just fine because you're buying at a time where there's more properties than buyers. So sellers are more flexible, prices are softer, and you can work better deals. I'm not saying everybody needs to buy, because if everybody bought in that time, and then guess what? Summertime would be the great time to buy. But when you say timing, you can't time the market, but you can time the right time of year to get the best deal. And in Memphis, people get desperate. They put them on the market November, and all of a sudden January rolls around, they haven't sold them yet. They're thinking, I'm not going to sell this house. So they start taking lowball offers. Instead of just understanding it's the market, people are worrying about Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Then when January, February hit, then they say, oh, crap, we wanted to move this summer. We need to start looking for a house. And then they start moving. April, May, and June and July are super hot here. Very competitive. During the Christmas time, that'd be great. I think we should do a couple of deals. We'll just find the area you want to be in, and we'll start hunting. Come Halloween, we'll make October 31st our first day of hunting for a property.
We like that. And we are starting
Unless
to
I
put
find
more.
you some slam dunk deal that we just can't pass up.
Right. Like we're doing a bunch of, or we're trying to sell the ones, but like that 1031 exchange piece.
Yep.
So then having the timing, you have the deadlines. So putting our stuff on the market at a certain time and then having that 45 days to name, 180 days to close, that's going to be something that we're definitely going to be looking at. So, we're talking timing. So those are other timing factors that we as investors look at.
So have you listed those properties yet?
We have
just
one on the
put
market.
Have you get any hits on it yet?
It's very slow.
Yeah, it's
Very
really slow.
Memphis bounces back quickly. So what's going on in Memphis now will slowly start happening in other markets, other bigger markets. So I'm guessing probably time out just perfect. Come soon as fall gets here, y'all start dropping these properties out, hopefully. Because by then, I think we'll have another rate drop, and it'll be more attractive for someone to buy. But let me ask you, in that market, when you sell, how do you market a property that the cash flow, because whoever buys that property for $600,000,
It's not a rental property.
It will not be a
oh,
rental
it's not.
property.
Okay.
So it's obviously currently a rental property, but these
So
are
you
houses
realize you're
that-
going to clean it up and sell it owner occupant.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's our goal anyway, and that's one of the problems with the legislation in Colorado is a lot of the investors are selling because they're making it so difficult for house providers to make income or get people out of the home if it
When they're
doesn't
not paying.
work, or they're not paying. They make it super difficult. And when you have 1 and 2 owners, if you can't get someone out of your house in 4 or 5 months, then you could break someone. So
Right.
that's just another.
I still can't believe that it takes that long to get somebody out.
Well, and you can't not renew now. So there has to be extenuating circumstances for you to not renew a tenant. So if your lease is up, normally we would say, hey, this
So
isn't
how are you going to
working.
handle this sale? I mean, you're not going to renew the lease, obviously, because you want to vacate it, clean it up, and put it on the market.
So we
Is there a legal method you have to notify them?
Yes, yeah, and there's all kinds of dates and deadlines. And at this point, we're not interested in getting rid of good tenants. We have a wealth of wonderful
Yes, we
tenants.
do.
So at this point, the houses that we consider to sell are the ones that people have chosen not to renew, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
moving.
Gotcha.
So then we look at the
So you
property.
don't have
and
any
we're
legal
like, is this
issues
one-
there?
Right.
No, yeah.
But you sending a notice to vacate because you don't want to renew a lease and you want to sell it, that is now considered an eviction action.
Yes.
And now falls underneath these new rules
Yes.
in Colorado.
Yeah, so it's a 90-day no matter what. So if you want to sell the property, you want to move back into it, you want to move immediate family member back in, you can do those, but you do have to give 90 days notice. Part of the legislation was going to be that you then also had to provide 30 or 60 or 90
60
days
days.
of expenses to the tenant after they moved out if
No, wait. Rephrase that. 90 days of expenses. What do you mean expenses?
like rent, cover their rent. But that didn't pass,
It didn't
thank
pass.
goodness.
It didn't pass.
Hold on a second. Let me just make sure my ears are not clogged and I heard that accurately. So if you as a owner have a tenant moving out and they go rent another home,
This is if you've told them you weren't renewing.
you got to cover their rent for the next 3 months, possibly.
Possibly. But that did not pass.
It did not pass. We're also involved in the Landlord Legislative Coalition.
It
in
just got
Colorado.
renamed. It's
Oh,
now
yeah.
the Colorado Housing Providers.
So we're
Okay.
involved in that, and that is a group of investors that petition the.
We're going to be lobbying to get
They're
some of this stuff
lobbying
changed.
against those things, and that does help us because the measures that they're putting out were more dire for landlords. So,
I don't understand. So let me give you an example of where y'all are headed. And it's a different angle, but in 2004 and 5, there were tons and tons of MHA investors. That's all they wanted was Section 8, Section 8. And they were, half the houses were Section 8, which then gave rise to the amount of the huge amount of funding MHA currently gets every year. But because of the way they handled the tenants, when a tenant broke a window, they would tell the landlord or the owner, well, we're not paying your rent till you go fix the window. Well, I didn't break it. The tenant did. They should pay for it. Well, not my problem. You don't get your rent till you fix it. So all of a sudden, landlords are dumping money in these properties because the tenants are tearing them up and they're not being held responsible. So you know what happened is after 2010, investors just stopped taking MHA tenants. They said, nope, I don't want an MHA tenant. So what happened is most of those MHA tenants ended up in horrible neighborhoods with horrible homes, because that's all MHA could find for them to rent, because nobody wanted to rent to MHA tenants.
In horrible landlords.
Yeah. And you ended up with a bunch of slumlords is what you ended up with. So what MHA did in recognizing that is they changed their policies. They changed how they put tenants in the homes. They do inspections when they're supposed to. They hold the tenant responsible. They tell the tenant, you lose your MHA status, you never get it back. So you get tenants working harder to keep their MHA status, and they end up staying in the homes longer. So now investors are coming back in droves to get MHA tenants because they've done a good job of changing the process. But that's what's going to happen in Colorado is eventually everyone like you guys are going to sell your properties and just stop.
Yeah.
Now what do you do with all the people
renters
who need to rent a home?
Well, they're just making it worse.
Are they trying to run? What they're doing is they're trying to run all the money makers out of the state is what they're doing.
Well, and what do they call it? The unintended consequences. I don't feel that they're considering the unintended consequences because I'm not. If you do the math, that 1%, you can't even touch. What that is. Think of what you had to charge for rent to make $300 a month with a $600,000 house.
No
so
doubt.
then they're taking away from the renter pool, which is, we tell them that they don't really want to listen.
Well, what you end up with, quite frankly, in the next 5 years, you're going to end up with a bunch of people who need housing, rent housing, but there's no houses to rent.
And what
Which
does that
means
do?
the prices are going to skyrocket.
Right, here's what's going to happen. Then the government's going to step in, and you're going to end up with
rent control.
And you're going to end up with the government owning rental properties that they will rent to people that need to rent under the laws that they created and passed.
Yeah, where do they get
and
that
guys
money?
like you who actually provide housing, just like my guys here, are going to get out of the business and move somewhere else. They're going to go get properties in other states and do that somewhere else. If I was a gambling man, I would gamble that property values in Colorado are probably going to take a hit in the next 5 years because you're not going to have the ability to rent to those tenants. You're not going to be able the ability to cash flow them, and a lot of those people are going to pull out of the market. Most investors that aren't tied to Colorado, you're tied to Colorado, you live there. But these investors that don't live in Colorado, it's just an investment, are going to start just offloading stuff. As they offload, there go your prices. And when that starts going down, there goes your tax base. It goes down. And then all of a sudden you have no properties with a ton of renters, and the government steps in to save the day and screws it all up, and it becomes a shit show.
Yeah.
Beep show.
Those evil landlords.
Right. So I think that's where you're headed. So it might be smart to get out of Colorado investment right now while the market's still up here and you can cash out on it and make money. Because I think this is going to end up hurting the values of the properties in Colorado over the long term, because there's no way to make money. Investment drives what? Drives competition. When competition gets hot, prices go up. When competition drops and demand is and you got plenty of inventory and no competition, everything comes back down.
We don't have plenty of inventory, though. And it's always, just the appreciation that we've seen is just insane.
Do you think realistically it'll keep that pace?
It's definitely not going to keep the pace that it has had over the last decade or more. But it's such a desired area to be and live due to the mountains and the beauty of Colorado that I just think that there will continue to be people that do want to live there. But ultimately, no question about it, there's only a select few that can afford that type of priced housing.
Okay.
And so
many people we know have left the state. It's it's the unaffordability of the state just in the real estate. Because when you look at buying a house versus renting a house, it is so much cheaper right now to rent. When you do the math, that $600,000 house, right? The mortgage on that is going to be over $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
Where the rent we were charging $3,000.
Well, before the gut remodel, it was 25.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just you can rent a lot cheaper than you can afford to buy in Colorado.
Which is my point, is that you're going to have a lot of people that have to rent, but they won't be able to because nobody will rent to them.
That's 100%. Yes.
So I think that creates a crisis that the government will come in and try to solve and just screw stuff up worse. I almost said the S word. I didn't. You tell me I need to quit saying shit.
It's because you are.
Because my famous line is you have to have a no fund, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have a no fund.
We have an
And I said that, and now all the agents on our team, when we're doing a podcast, they're all saying no shit fund. And I had an investor on last week, and I said it a couple of times. Next thing you know, he's in the middle of talking. He goes, yeah, I got my fund built, and it just became a word.
It was actually I renamed my bank account that about a decade ago. Yeah,
No
it's
doubt.
our reserve account.
That's our reserves.
Nice.
Yeah, we were listening to
Well,
that
damn it, I thought I
podcast.
created
The reserves are such a big, important piece for investors is to make sure that ours is 6 months. You know, we have 6 months of reserves for
That was
each
Kevin's.
asset.
Kevin said the same thing. Needs 6 months of money.
Yep.
We do have it.
Well, let's get back to, now we're done beating up on Colorado and all your woes in Colorado. Let's talk about the system real quick. You just said you have 6 months worth of reserve. I preach all the time the long game because I get calls every day from a 24-year-old kid in California or somewhere that just got out of a seminar, basically telling me that he's going to buy all these properties. In 5 years, he's going to quit his day job, and by 30, he's going to be retired. We all know in this room that that's BS. There's no way that's going to happen unless you just get lucky and buy a house and it goes up in value exponentially overnight. So I try to tell them, you got to play the long game. You got to deal with when you're 40. Do you want to be a millionaire? Yes. Okay. Well, what if you had 15 properties paid for worth $3 million? Well, guess what? You're a millionaire. And those 15 properties are bringing in $20,000 a month in rent. And they're all paid for. So you don't have any debt service. You're just paying your taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That's where you want to be. But they've got it in their mind that they're going to be able to do that in 5 years somehow. You mentioned the guy's name. What was his name? Do you want to say it? You don't want to say it? A seminar guy, which I'm hunting you down. I'm not going to say your name on air, but I'm going to hunt you down and kick your ass because it's making my job hard. But I preach to them, please just look at this. You don't go and put money in the stock market or your 401k and just start taking out your dividends and spending it, right? What do? You reinvest it. You let it reinvest in the asset. For what? So when you retire, you've got that large nest egg saved up. Treat your real estate the same way. Is that your philosophy? Is it something that eventually you're going to become a nomad gypsy and you're going to jump in a mobile home and you're going to take off across the country? And that's how you're going to do it because you'll have your net worth, you'll have your cash flow, and you won't have to get up and go to work every day.
It's been 22 years to build our reserve accounts to where we need them to be, to where we are now actually taking cash flow.
But
we haven't taken cash flow from properties.
Right. We've been reinvesting.
Music
for
to my
20
ears.
Yep.
I hope everybody listening hears that. You're not making the cash flow to go buy a boat or a car or take your wife on vacation.
It's never been our income.
You're investing in an asset. So it's simple for me, right? You get a mortgage, you put 20% down, you got $20,000 invested in a $100,000 house, and you're netting $250 a month. Divide $250 and your $20,000 down and see what your rate of return is. It's huge. Everybody's like, well, but I got a mortgage and I got that. You're not paying the mortgage. Who's paying the mortgage?
Tenant.
The tenant's paying the mortgage. The tenant's paying the taxes. The tenant's paying the insurance. And if you're smart with your fund, the tenants are paying for the ultimate repairs you're going to have to make when they vacate, right? But the goal here is to what? 20 years from now, have 15, 20 properties paid for, cash flowing. Now you are a millionaire. Now you're wealthy. Now you're successful in real estate.
Except
but I just
we
can't
don't
get
want to deal with the state of Colorado.
Except you don't want to do it. Just don't buy in Colorado.
That's right.
Right. But that's what I try to teach the younger investors. Now, some of the older investors have been around a while. I've got some older gentlemen that are, I say older gentlemen, they're my age. Screw you, Richard. Quit looking at me like
They're
that.
drunkards like you.
Yeah, drunken old men like me. So, but they're getting started later in life. So I get their philosophy is going to be different because they're in a bigger hurry to try to get these things done. But I mentioned an investor of mine that has over 40 properties, and he uses the Dave Ramsey approach to his properties. 100% of his, if he's got 10 properties in Memphis, he takes 100% of his profit, pays down that first one, pays it off 5 to 7 years, it's paid for. Then he starts on number 2, and then starts on number 3, and starts on number 4. And then when he gets 3 or 4 of them paid off, he's got $500,000 there, he'll cash flow out tax-free cash and reinvest and add to his portfolio on the end. So now we have 11, 12, and 13, and keep piling on, pay down 3, then pay down 4. And today's, I think he just turned 51, and he's probably worth $7 or $8 million. He's pulling in 20, 30 grand a month in cash flow, has very little debt service on most of his properties. And that's all he does is travel and be a landlord. And he's got guys like me here who do a lot of the legwork for him. But that's what I want these young guys to understand, and young girls. If you're going to invest in real estate, that's who you want to be, right? You two are setting examples of what they want to be 20, 30 years from now. What they're getting taught is going to unfortunately put them in bankruptcy in the next 24 months because they're just not going at this with a reasonable expectation and using common sense.
It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
It's a get-rich-slow scheme.
It's a get rich slow. And think of the unicorn
But let me
we've
ask
been
you-
living for the last 5 years. That's not over history. You don't get 20% appreciation a year. That's not a thing. 3% appreciation a year is historically the way to go. So just do the math, and the math answers everything. But
I mean, look at
the younger ones don't know it yet.
That's right. No, the problem is we have an instant, I need it now. So it's so easy for a clown in California, to charge a kid $2,000 to tell him how to get it now. Right? Be rich tomorrow. But I don't ever know, unless you bought Bitcoin, that still wasn't get rich overnight. It still took 10 to 12 years for that to happen. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, and the younger investors, they'll learn. How do we learn in real estate?
The hard way.
Mistakes. Everything we've done is by making those mistakes. So it's an opportunity for them to learn. So I think, they'll learn one way or another.
It's the same old adage. If we could just take what we know today and go shove it in our brains when we were 21 years old. But unfortunately, they waste the energy and stupidity on the young. If we had the energy and the mindset we have today, I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be on our yachts in the Caribbean somewhere. But, we're all young and dumb at one point. So, well, I really hope that y'all can sell your properties. I hope y'all buy in Memphis some more.
Well, we are very much enjoying it.
Would love to know what your opinion was of the turnkey rehabbed versus the new construction and the actual market, and if it's something that makes sense to you, or if there's still some questions you have about it.
Yeah.
Honest opinion.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of people listening, and they're always hunting for ideas and information.
With the repairs and maintenance we've dealt with over 2 decades, I love the new build.
Okay.
But I also am, there's value in the rehabbed properties as well. We're the ones that did the rehabs for, the last 2 decades.
Right.
So that was us in there laying flooring, painting, and doing the work previously. So we appreciate the rehabbed properties for sure, but I certainly have a new love for new builds.
Yeah. Well, we try to build, I know the rehabbers and the builders try to do them, they don't make them tenant proof, but they try to make them economically easier to turn when a tenant leaves by not having to replace entire rooms of flooring, replacing one piece, pulling a countertop off and putting another $300 countertop down. And in Memphis, because we have so many renters and it's such a big business, Terry especially has done a great job of making homes so easy to rent turn, because you don't have all this expensive stuff in them that has to be torn out and replaced. We looked at a new construction house today, and with the granite countertops and all that, and if they damage the granite countertop, you're talking $3,000 just to replace it. If that was Formica, $300-$400 done. Pay some guy a couple $100 to put it in, and you're finished.
I would never put granite in our long-term rentals.
I'm working with that builder now to try to get him to scale back his. He'll make more money, number one, and the end buyer will actually be in a better position to not cost themselves so much money when they do a rent turn if something is damaged. But, I'm working on him. But I really appreciate y'all being here, and I appreciate everybody listening today. Call us at 901-692-7401 or go to memphisinvestmentproperties.com. Love to hear from you. If you got any questions, you just want to pick our brain, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks for listening.
For more common sense real estate tips, listen and subscribe at 5o'clocksomewherepodcast.com. The 5 O'Clock Somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast is a Sound Ideas Group production.